Hey peoples, welcome back to the Blind Girl Experience. It's Eve Kibare, your host as usual, and today I'm going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to mention the people I was with in the ward at Kenyatta and just appreciate them for the kind of support they gave me and what they meant to me over the 5 or 6 weeks I was there. So I will start with, I was admitted in Kenyatta on the 17th of June at 11 p.m. and it was a very scary night. It was cold because it's on the 8th floor. And I was admitted in the ward 8D, blue team. There I found 1, 2, 3, 4 beds occupied. There were 4 beds occupied. So the first 2 days I wasn't very conversant with people because I'm in a strange place and I'm having really terrible headaches, and from the looks of things I look very okay. Like outwardly I look I'm okay, but inside I was suffering. And I remember the 4 people were having a conversation at some point. I think, is it on Friday morning before I woke up, because I finally got to catch up on sleep like for 30 minutes or an hour. And when I was waking up now, they were discussing me and they were like, what's the problem with that young girl? She looks very young and she looks very healthy. What could be the problem? And so they were just having a discussion. And at that point, I'm so new. I don't know who they are. I want to give them the explanation of what's wrong with me, but then I'm like, but why am I even doing this? I don't think I'll be here for so long. Partly because I was told that I had acute meningitis, and for the 3 people that I knew who had meningitis passed on, I wasn't really, I didn't think I would be there for long enough for me to tell my story. So anyway, I'll start with the first lady. She was called Mama Mogambi. Mama Mogambi was like the mom of the ward. She was like my mom as well. It was, her bed was located at a place where it had the only charging port. Like her bed and where the socket was, it was the only working charging port in the ward. So on Friday, my phone was dying out of charge, and I asked her if I could charge my phone on her port, and she was like, yeah, sure. And she said, I'll call you when it seems like it's done. And I was like, thank you. So how she became like a mother figure for me in the ward is because she was always so caring, and she'd give us stories about her past life and her relationship with her kids, and funny stories about her home. And she also mentioned that she had worked in Kenyatta previously in her career before she retired, so she knew how the hospital worked, and she knew some of the nurses like with their names, and she had a bit of some of their backgrounds. So she was kind of like the famous person in our ward, where when the nurse comes in, actually refers to her with her name or call her mom. And whenever I was like, on a good day, we'd have conversations, and she was always very happy to hear me laugh. Because I was the kind of patient, when I am good, I have all the energy in the world to talk to people on the phone and make very crude jokes and laugh. Because I'm like, well, if this is it, let me live life to the fullest. And like I had mentioned in my previous episode, I mentioned that I didn't want people to remember me with the gloom on my face or from a gloomy side of life. I just wanted them to remember me as cheerful and bubbly and happy. So whenever I had the energy, I would actually have very good conversations on phone and even with the people around me. So there was this time now when my health started deteriorating, and I was always awake during the night, making my bed 15 times, going to the loo 12 times, trying to keep myself busy because my head had refused to lay on the pillow I felt like every time I lay my head on the pillow, I was putting my head in hot oil. So I was trying to keep myself busy during the night and counting hours to morning. And whenever she'd find me taking my laps, she would pray for me, and I'd hear her just pray and mention me in her prayer and hope that I feel better. And she'd sing a worship song for me. And I'm fighting this pain, I'm fighting this agony that I'm going through, and I'd hear her prayer and it would calm me for some very weird reason. It would calm me because she doesn't know me like that. We're not like from the same family. We just met in the word, and she would go into prayer when she finds me pacing. She'd go into prayer and say that I want that girl to feel better. I want her to be better. She's like my daughter, and at that time, I'm trying so hard to keep it together and not concentrate on her prayer because I'm fighting pain and agony. But then I'd feel tears of joy, and overwhelming joy because this lady doesn't even know me. She just met me and she is praying so hard for me to be better. And she's also undergoing a lot of, stress and pain. But she found time to pray. And she also, like, on any other person was falling ill or was having an attack at night, either loss of breath, or they're in pain and they start crying, or they are screaming in pain, she'd always fall into prayer and pray for whoever is going through a very hard period. And I found that really beautiful. What she did was so beautiful because it was not demanded of her. She just did it so gracefully. Like if she wakes up in the middle of the night and finds somebody is still awake because of pain, she would just start praying for that person. And I thought that was a very beautiful thing she did. Then there was Alice. Alice was like the big sister of the word. Alice would keep everybody in check. If you're too loud, she'd call you out and say, yo, sisi wengine tunajaribu kulala, tafadhali punguza volume. And it was not in an unkind nature. It was more of nobody else would do it, but she would do it so well. And the person who's making noise would just, go into, I'm sorry, and then lowers their volume. Alice was the person when whatever you were going through, she was always keen enough to ask, can I help? How can I help? And I'm thinking, you're also in bed. And the funny thing is, I never saw Alice walk. I never saw her sit up. She was always lying in her bed. And whenever she would sit up, she was helped. She was helped by people to stand up. And even, I can't remember, even when she was going to the loo, she had to go to the loo using a wheelchair. So I never saw her like sit up like I would be able to sit up. She was always lying in bed. But she always had the grace to ask you, how can I help you? And I'm thinking, you're in so much pain, but you have the extra energy to ask someone, how can I help? So sometimes someone would be going through complicated, like maybe someone is losing their breath, she'd be the first person to call the nurse. If someone is maybe wasn't visited that day, she'd share her food. If someone probably needs somebody to call back home and ask for the people to come and, do a test because there's a test needed to be done, she'd be the one offering and go like, okay, do you know your person's number? Can I call them for you? And I found that so big because Alice was going through a lot. She was going through a lot because I'm telling you, I never saw her walk. I never saw her sit up in her bed. She was always in a very, very inconvenient, like it's just a very uncomfortable position. Even when she sits up, you had to put like pillows so that she would be able to rise. And every time she would turn, you'd feel like she was in so much pain. But no matter what she was going through, she always had extra energy to take care of someone else. Like if somebody else is trying to get to her, you know, like you're in your bed and you're trying to get to your water, and someone else can be able to walk in the ward, she'd be like, nani, suendo tafti usaidie yule kuchukua maji yake. And I remember there was once in the night she'd called me and told me, Eve, can you walk today? And I was like, yes, this lady right next to me needs hot water. Can you come and put for her hot water? And just because she asked, I was able to just get out of my bed, stumble, and keenly put water for her and be able to feed her the water. And not caring that at this point in our lives, in the world, there's COVID. Being in that room, in that ward, it wasn't about COVID. It wasn't about cancer. It wasn't about, you know, tuberculosis or pneumonia or, you know, my blood clot, or it wasn't about what we were ailing from. It was about the familiarity and the unity that we had for one another that made you survive the night. Because the night is when you're all alone without like special care from your family and your guardian. So Alice was big like that. She had an amazing soul. She always was willing to help. Even if she's not the one who's going to do it, she will ask somebody else to do it for you. Another person I remember was Rosemary. Rosemary reminded me of my grandmother. And the coincidence is my grandmother is called Rose, and Rosemary was almost like my grandmother. And the fact that I could not see their faces because I had lost my sight partially, I could only see their figures. I knew their beds, I knew their voices, and I knew their figures. So Rosemary reminded me of my grandmother. So every morning when I'd wake up, she'd always say, good morning msichana, umelalaje? Leo umeweza kulala? And I'm like, wow, you are so concerned about my sleep. And when I've not been able to sleep, she would actually say, najua leo jalala, but nitakuombea utapata nafuu. And her voice was almost like my grandmother. So I felt like my grandmother was literally with me in the ward. And just the way she would talk, I'm like, that's my grandma. Until there's a day my grandma called me to just wish me luck and wish me quick recovery. And I told her, I have your namesake in my ward and she reminds me of you because she talks like you. And she laughed. She was like, you see, I'm still with you. Niko hapo na wewe. Ni vile tu sina nguvu, lakini ningekuja nikuwe na wewe. And for me, it was a beautiful moment for me every day to have people like that who were foreign people before. They were strangers to you before, but now they've become like your family. So every day, there were the people who would check up on you, and you find yourself, even you feeling away, you feel the urge to also check up on them, that you're concerned if Rosemary is not awake at her time, you want to go and actually go to her bed and check up on her and ask her, does she need anything? Do you need anything? Then later on, like 2 days after I was admitted, a lady called Anne was admitted, and she came in at night. And so Anne was my age mate. She was not my age mate, like she was in my age group. And from the moment Anne came in, we became friends instantly. And she joined, she had a problem with, she had diabetes, I think, and kidney failure. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was she just needed a change of catheter, and then she goes back home. But because of the way the hospital is run and so many politics and bureaucracies and whatever happens in hospitals, especially this particular one, she ended up staying for more than the 3 days she intended. She ended up staying for like a week and some days. And Anne became like my best friend. She was in the bed right on my right, and it was the last bed on my right. So she was like, we were like bedmates. it's not, we are not sharing the same bed, but she was literally like my bunkmate. So she was also partially blind because of diabetes. And whenever we'd go to the loo, we'd go to the loo together, like two blind, two blind mice. And I remember Friday, that was the 19th of June, early, is it Saturday morning? Yeah, Saturday morning, because Friday I was unable to sleep. I was in so much pain. And then I woke up in so much pain because I hadn't slept really well. And I started crying, and I was like, I want to go. I want God to just take my life because this is too much. And she woke up and she lulled me. She was like, no, God has a purpose for you. Keep at it. Even me, I'm sick. But somehow it's like when anyone gets worse in the ward, someone would find strength to give you strength. You know, like they forget they're also in pain and would, you know, would calm you down and give you words of encouragement. And Anne was that for me. She was like we became like very, very good friends, that even when my mom comes before her mom, we'd like share food. But she was really a bad feeder because I think the diabetes really affected her feeding, her eating habits. And if my mom comes before hers, she would call the mom and ask her if she's almost there. We even helped her get a letter so that she can be visited every day because she was also partially sighted. And I think Anne came into my life to just hold me down, you know, and I was able to get through the day because with Anne we would talk, even if our parents were not able to reach on time, you know, because when they don't visit, when you expect, you rely so much on being visited because they're the people who will take you to the loo. Your family is the same people who will feed you. They're the ones who will get your medicine. They'll get you your painkillers. So when they don't come, you feel like you want to crash. So sometimes they'd get delayed because of the COVID rules and regulations. Excuse me, and check up, like they had to do, the checking points became very, I don't know what you call it, like the security checks became too strict. So they take a lot more time than usual sometimes to get to the wards. And I never used to see like it was such a big deal because Anne was there. We'd be laughing and talking about stories and talking about our inconveniences and how we were able to sleep or not sleep at night. And we'd talk through our pain. And it was really nice to have her around. Even when she was discharged, she still called me and asked me if I'm doing well, if I began seeing. And she'd tell me about she'd even let her daughter talk to me on the phone. And we became like we were family. So what was even amusing is when there was a day both Anne and I were like really in bad state. And I remember Mama Mogambi was saying there's something wrong with the ward today because those two girls at the corner are not giggling and they're always giggling. Inamaanisha wamelemewa kabisa. And it really bothered Mama Mogambi because she's like, those two girls are always giggling and they're not talking today. They're not giggling. They're not telling each other stories. I think it calmed her when she had us talking our own stories. We're not talking to the whole world. We're just talking amongst ourselves. And for these particular 2 days, it was hard for even Mama Mogambi. She was like, those two girls are not okay. I feel bad that they're not okay and there's nothing I can do about it. But Anne was really like that friend that I needed at the ward. And then there are other people who came in and went. So it's not like the ward remained the way it was. It's just that the other people became like not even supporting. They became helpers of if it's a movie, they were the helpers of the film. Maybe extras. I remember there was Lucy, and there was also Lucy. There were two Lucys. There was one Lucy who left and went to the other ward after she went for her dialysis, and then there was Lucy who I think was suffering from schizophrenia. That lady made me appreciate that I was open-minded enough to know that she was going through schizophrenia, because people in the world used to really find her funny, because she was a bit like her escapades were a bit funny. But it was also frightening because of what she was going through. Her head was telling her that she was on fire, and she'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming that her feet are on fire, or she cannot find her feet, or she doesn't know where her hands are. And at first it sounded funny, but at some point you realize that this lady is really suffering mentally, and she does not know how to make it right. So those people I met in the ward somehow make you think beyond yourself. They make you think beyond your suffering. They make you think beyond, I am going through so much. I'm going through so much pain. I have convulsed. It's more of, today I was able to talk to Mama Mogambi. So it became a routine that every morning I'd wake up, and if I'm feeling okay, I would go all the way to her bed and say hi to her and just greet her and ask her how she slept. Then the next bed was Alice's bed, and I'd say good morning to her and ask her how she slept and if she needs anything, because at this point she was bedridden for real. At least Mama Mogambi would move around, but Alice wouldn't. So I'd ask her if she wants me to do anything for her. And it made the day doable. You know, you could do the day. You're like, okay, fine. I know I'm going through this, but we are all in this together. And when our people start coming in, because they'd start checking in from around 12, Mama Mogambi would always give my mom the full report of what happened during the night from when she left. Oh, your daughter today didn't sleep, or your daughter today did this and this. In fact, she'd say our daughter. In fact, our daughter today, she didn't sleep. Today she has not talked. She has not spoken to anyone. I think she's not okay. Oh, yesterday she was told this by the doctor. I'm like, wow, this woman has decided she's going to take charge of my life. But it was such a sweet thing of her to do. And she did it so effortlessly. Like, she cared that much that she would always give a report. And to the point that even my mom began just loving her, and my sister, and even Pauline. Like, it became routine that when they check into the room, because she was the first bed on the left, they'd say hi to her first. How are you? Do you need anything? And then they'd go to Alice, say hi, and even Mama Alice would come and say hi to me before she'd do anything. Like, it was routine. My mom walks in, say hi to Mama Mogambi, say hi to Alice, then she'd come to me, or she'd go to Rosemary, say hi to Rosemary, and then she'd come say hi to me and Anne. And then anybody else who comes in, let's say Mama Mogambi's daughter or son, would come and say hi to Alice, Rosemary, Anne, and I, and then go back to attending to their mom, and even Mama Alice. And there was a time I think my mom really got delayed because she was looking for medication for me that was not available in the hospital. And she was there, she was like, oh, do you need anything? Like, I was like, I just need water. And she brought me water. She almost gave me her Alice's food. And I was like, no, I'm good, I'll wait for my mom. And even they would help each other, you know, like if someone was not able to show up maybe that day for whatever reason, you'd find that the people who came through, the family that came through, would take care of the other person that wasn't visited. And I think that was the magical moment, and the thing that I learned the most from that was, sometimes it's not about who we are, what our titles are in our day-to-day lives and activities. It's a kind of person you really are when you're brought back to basic. It's that feeling of just basic joy, basic unity, basic love, basic kindness and care made us get through the day, and it made us be able to make it through the day as well, and make it through the night, because we were one unit. It was family. And I think I was able to get through the 5 weeks because of those people. I'm not saying the other people didn't do much. It's just that those people remained ingrained in my head. And then there was Mama Ruth. Mama Ruth had, I think, throat cancer, so she was not able to speak, and the only language she understood was Kiswahili and Kisii. So it was so hard to communicate to her because she was training to speak. She came in a bit later, and she was put on oxygen because that's the only way she was able to at least inhale and exhale. And I remember her daughter Ruth and her son became part of they joined in and became part of the family. And even when now because Alice was the next bed to Mama Ruth, she came in between Mama Mogambi and Alice. Mama Ruth came in between Mama Mogambi and Alice. And so Alice, at times, she would be the one doing things. She'd stretch her hand and try to put water for Mama Ruth. And I'm like, Alice, you're also unwell. She'd be like, no, but she needs water or she needs uji. And I would just, if I had the strength, I would actually just wake up and try, make it work for her. And with time, even now, Ruth and the son of that lady, I did not know her name, I didn't get to know her name, became part of the cycle. You come in, you say hi to your other patients. It's like the 5 or 6 of us who were there it's like everybody was responsible for everybody else, both our families and us as the patients. And so even Ruth would come and see me every morning before she goes to the mom. She'd go say hi to the mom, maybe give her hot water, and then she'd come and say hi to me, and she'd come say hi to Anne before she was discharged, and say hi to Rosemary. And it was such like a beautiful experience amid all the struggle, the pain, the suffering. It was such a beautiful experience, and I thought I should share it with you. I don't know if they will ever get to watch, their family will ever get to watch this, but I just wanted to appreciate the kind of people they were to me and what they made me feel. They made me feel cared for, loved, and they made me feel some sort of home and appreciated, So cheers to Mama Mogambi, cheers to Alice, cheers to Rosemary, cheers to Anne, cheers to Mama Ruth. Unfortunately, Mama Mogambi, Alice, Mama Ruth, and Anne haven't made it to this year. They haven't made it to now. They went to, their souls have rested, and for their family that are still alive, just know that they meant the world to me, and they made my life a little bit whole even when it was falling apart. So cheers to them, and may God rest their souls in peace. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I hope if you remember them, any of you ever meet them, ever meet their family, or if their family ever runs into this episode, they just know that their lives were not in vain. They touched my life, and I'm very appreciative of that. So it's good to appreciate the people who are around you when they're alive. I'm sorry I was not able to do that, but I will do this for the ones who remain alive, and may their souls really rest in peace. So thanks for joining me for this episode, and I hope you're all well. I hope to see you next time. Not really. I'm not seeing you. I won't be able to see you. But I hope you can join me next time for another episode. Cheers and bye for now.